Welcome to another edition of Talking with WIT Kevin and Son, featuring the people you should know. Hi, I'm Kevin McLemore. I am your show host, four-time published author, speaker, and what my friends call me, Mindset Messenger. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Through the power of your voice, our mission is to uplift, share your stories, inspire you, share experience and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Now, let me tell you, whatever your objective is, successful people create a framework around their everyday life, like my host today. And sometimes, not only do they enhance their own lives, but they pour into others. This podcast today will reveal the effective lives of someone looking through the lens of success and their glass being half full, but sometimes it spills over. For better words, we're changing the narrative of the way that you view your life from the top and show you how, through our guests, that we go from a real estate mogul to homelessness. It sounds like the other way around, doesn't it, Doug? This guest will share with you the steps he took to come out of his darkest hours to become an emotional change artist. That's what I like to call him, and a better human being. He took small steps that led to big outcomes. This guest will share his story, and it's a story that needs to be told. The show is all about facing your challenges head on. So if you stay around long enough, maybe our guest will share some of his simple and doable steps of how he transformed his world. And I think there's a story that connects him to AI. Our guest is fun. He's relatable. He is a speaker. I said he was a change artist. He is the gatekeeper to kindness. He has captivated audience from around the world. Let me welcome and let me introduce to soon will be one of my good friends, Mr. Doug Crowe, the change artist. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great with that intro, boy. I don't know who's going to be on the show today. I can't wait to meet him.
You know something, Doug? I try to be a little different because your resume reads like a who's who.
Yeah.
And I would probably be on here and take the first 3 minutes of the introduction, and I'll be reading your resume, and I would have to turn to my show notes. But, I want to talk about personal stories because you are what I call homeboy. You're from Cleveland, Ohio, or once lived in Cleveland, Ohio.
Hmm.
So we talked earlier about the sad state of affairs, and I won't say sad state of
Yes.
affairs. We lost
Yeah.
one game. The season's not over with, but we'll go from there. But Doug. Give us a little. Um, let's turn the page back a little bit. Where are you right now in life?
Right now, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and living a great life. So I
All
answer that
right,
two
that's
different ways.
that's good. The last time I heard that was 2 weeks ago. I saw a young lady walking out of the health club,
Mm.
and I asked how she was doing. She was doing great. She had a 7-year-old boy,
Oh,
7-year-old son. I
yeah.
reached down and extended my hand. You know the way we are from the Midwest, Ohio. We're
Yeah.
friendly to everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I said, "How are you doing?" And the 7-year-old boy said this: "I'm living my best life." And I
Raised
go,
right.
yeah, that's what I said. I had to hug and kiss his mom because I said, this
Yep.
young man is being raised right. Now,
Yep.
Doug, and for the people listening, I'm going to give a quick scenario summary. Doug, you are, from what I remember, you're probably one of the youngest people to win the Dale Carnegie Highest Achievement Award. And not only from there, you became an instructor. You graduated from Northwestern University. You're an accomplished writer, best-selling author. You're a contributor to Entrepreneur Magazine. You have been
Mhm.
featured on a host of radio shows and had your own, and you are a well-established entrepreneur. And you produced a couple movies in your life. Is there anything that you have not done?
I haven't flown a plane around the world yet, but I'm a pilot, and that's one of my goals. But that's about it. Yeah,
All
I've
right.
I've traveled a lot. I really enjoyed traveling, and that's one of the things I don't even use the word pride because I don't do it for anybody else. I do it for myself, but I love meeting new people, new cultures. So having been to, I don't know, 44 or 45 countries and all seven continents, including Antarctica, was just people call it bucket list. I just call it living. I just enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't like bucket lists because,
Yeah.
it's like with anything, you start with the end in mind. You have a
Yeah.
bucket list, and the end result is you're not going to be here to enjoy the bucket. I don't like kicking the bucket.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but I do have to say you have an amazing story.
Yeah.
You have a story, like I said, that needs to be told. Now, Doug, I know you've had some affiliations or contact with Hollywood movies and so
Mhm.
forth. And I'm going to ask you, this is just for fun. If I were to ask you, if they were going to make a movie about Doug Crowe, would
Uh-huh.
it be an action movie? Would it be sci-fi, adventure, drama, or
Uh,
dramedy, or
Oh,
comedy?
you definitely be a comedy.
A
I would hope.
comedy?
I would hope it'd be a comedy. I mean, I'd like to live a life of adventure, but I see people who've done much more memorable things than me in terms of adventure style. So comedy would work. It's so funny that you mentioned that. As a kid growing up in Ohio in the late 70s, we actually made movies for Super 8 movies. And I was just in Ohio from a class reunion this past weekend, and one of my buddies pulled out he had transferred the videotape, of course, but it was fun because we were like those kids in the movie Super 8.
Right.
Is just like that without the monster part. It's very similar to
Okay.
making movies and being crazy, and you know, it was just a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked you that because your story has a dark side to it, and that's the reason why I asked you that because um, if you peel back the layers of probably every successful, go to any bookstore, every successful entrepreneur, CEO of how
Mhm.
they overcome, everyone has either been homeless, has been bankrupt, been divorced, and so forth, and came out of it. So the
Yeah.
reason why I'm not going back through that part of your history, because you can Google that on your story. But
Yeah.
when you say that it's going to be a comedy, how would your story begin? And are you going to be the antagonist or the protagonist in your story?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I suppose your story should always be the protagonist, I would hope. Maybe the
Yeah,
antagonist would be the dark side. You've got a demons you've got to overcome, perhaps. But
right.
yeah, I mean, the dark side, it should, I don't know if people Google it because I don't really publish a whole lot. I've only talked about it on podcasts, but it's important because when people go through their trauma and they go, "Oh, I learned from that. It was my learning moment, the silver lining in the cloud." Not when it's happening. When it's going on, it's not a happy thing. And I've had my share of pain and injury in my life, but nothing trumps the pain and injury of a emotional trauma is much worse than physical. Physical, your body heals whenever time it takes, but emotional, social, family trauma, I mean, if you don't fix that or have a process for it, it's going to stick around.
Yeah, it becomes hard. It's not only, and I think the reason why it becomes hard because I'm going to tell you, we are both the same side of the coin when it comes to parts of our story, if not the whole story. I always say that there's no such a thing as an original story. The only thing that makes it original is location and cast of characters and how you act
Mhm.
afterwards.
Right.
So um, I know that the biggest thing for me, and yours may be different. What made it hard was the people that had to share your life with you. Is that the same experience? And if you want to go into how you had it all and lost it all, I'm okay with listening to it.
Yeah, people talk about the rags to riches story. Mine's riches to rags, and I'll give you the brief version. But I got involved in real estate and real estate development and buying apartment buildings and condos. I even bought a convent and converted that to a multifamily, and did very well in the real estate business until I didn't. 2008 wiped out a lot of people, and I'm not unique in that era. But people complained or boohooed about their foreclosure. I'm like, okay, well, I had 19 of those in a span of a year.
Mhm.
Bankruptcy, divorce, foreclosures. And I'll just say, I mean, there was real intentional suicidal thoughts going on. Usually when people are sad or depressed, the thought would come and go pretty quickly. And when it lingers for hours or days, it's very dangerous. And there's been a couple of moments I won't forget where I was like, well, how painful would that be? Would that probably be less painful to put a bullet in my head versus what I was suffering through? Unfortunately, I didn't. But during those times, I wouldn't wish upon that pain on my worst enemy. It was deep. Getting out of it was the more fun part that people want to know about. But if you don't experience it, there's nothing grows at the top of the mountain, things grow in the valley. All these things that we've said and read about are all just trite things, silver lining stuff. But actually experiencing it is much different than reading about it. And when I was in the depths of depression, I tried to read my way out of it. I put in the whole, Zig Ziglar CDs and go back to those books of self-development. Most millionaires have been broke 2.2 times in their life, etc. And when I'm reading them, when I'm on the way up, it was inspiring. When I've crashed and trying to get out again, I didn't believe him. The content was the same. My perspective had changed. And I thought it was all just a bunch of malarkey. I'm like, this is just crazy. There's no truth to this stuff anymore. And so I'm still alive, struggling. Yeah, pretty much broken, homeless, depending on what time of the season it was. But I'll never forget the moment I was putting CDs in my car, trying to get out of this funk, just trying and trying everything possible. And Zig Ziglar, garbage. Tom Hopkins, never mind. But I put in this one CD, and 9 months of clinical depression went away in about 6 seconds. And I'm like, whoa, I feel better now. I'm energized. I'm positive. Old Doug is back. I'm like, who is this guy on the CD? As I'm ejecting the CD from the player, I go, oh no, it was me. I did not recognize my own voice on this goal setting CD I had created for my real estate students. But hearing that voice and what I was saying just snapped me out of it. And I'm like, wow, my therapist was suggesting, medicine. And the best medicine was a trip to the past for me. And so, wow, this is so cool. How can my first thought was, how can I help others? And so I developed this software that was, it was kind of funky at the time. It's obsolete now, but at the time it was really cool. It was you fill out a little form online, and in a week, a book came to your doorstep with your name on it as the author, and it had your 90-day goal plan in there, written in your own personality, your picture in the back cover, and a text and voice message would come to you every couple of days, reminding you of your new future. I'm trying to put people in that state of, here's what it's going to be like. If you do the work today, you'll be successful tomorrow. So I had done this out of like my own experience. And when I presented to some pretty powerful people in the business world, Chet Holmes, when he was still alive, and Chet said, this is a really cool idea, Doug. What do I want with a $100 product? Why don't you just write a full-size book and charge, 20, 30 grand? And I'm like, okay, $100, 30 grand. I guess I'll go ahead and start ghostwriting books. So
Yeah.
that's what I started doing. That's where I came from.
It's amazing. Like I said, our stories are not original,
Yeah.
but they're original when we're telling our stories. And I think last week I sent you, I wake up every morning. For those of you that do not know me or not in my circle, everyone that I have in my circle, Doug is now part of that circle, are all people that I know that have a high call to action. These are people that get up every single day to get shit done.
Yep.
And if YouTube edits me for that, I'm gonna leave it in because that's just the type of people that we are. But I wrote the most painful act
Mhm.
that a person can ever have is a story that never gets told.
Yeah.
All right. And how, through a book, and I say this all the time, when you're an author, you never die because as long as your book is in the Library of Congress, your story is always going to be told.
That's right.
Now, the only time we ever die is no one wants to tell your story. If you have not inspired someone or given someone a reason to live, when I listen to your story, believe it or not, you take me back to a trigger of where I was in the same place you were in, but I was parked inside of a garage of a house that I had built that was being repossessed
Yeah.
because I had gotten ripped off by a contractor and could not, finish what I had started. And also lost my kids, had to return them because I had custody at that time. And I was going to ask you, and I didn't know the answer of how you got it back. But I will say that through journaling, was the
Uh-huh.
same way that I turned the trigger because
Yeah.
I fell 10 foot off a ladder and broke my neck and had a massive concussion. And then I had another concussion that wiped out my memory. But if it had not been for me journaling, I'd have never known my story. I had lost it all. I didn't know who my family was or anything else. So when
Mm.
you tell your story the way that you tell your story, and especially the fact that you are inspiring other people to share their stories, and especially making it easier for authors, I'm going to call you, a little bit more. You're a gift, Doug.
Uh,
You're a gift. So let's peel back the layers. How did you come about of creating and a whole system with ghostwriters? Because
mm.
everyone wanted to be an author, and I know how painful it is to write a book
Yeah.
Because I always tell people writing a book is easy. It's the rewrites that make it hard. I mean, if I told you I
Yeah.
sent you this morning, one of the books I sent you, I rewrote 25 times in order to get it right. All right.
Right.
I wish I had met you before. Okay.
Well,
I wish. So tell us how you got into the writing business and why it's so important, and walk us through the steps of this technique that you have. Because I
sure.
know people that would love to be with you.
Yeah. It's yeah, it came from an accident, right? Because I was, a real estate guy. And so when during my, depressed state, um I had written a book when I was successful, and the book was awful. So I didn't even publish it. It was just horrible.
What was the title of that book?
Oh, you're gonna love it. It was about my real estate business. It was called um was it real estate, yada yada yada, and other ways to. I have to look it up. It was a horrible title. It was like, a spin-off Seinfeld, yada yada yada. Because everyone's doing the same thing. I'm trying to be more contrarian, so I was trying to reflect on that. But you can't find it. I never published it. I can look it up online and on my
Okay.
hard drive somewhere. So I wrote this book. It was awful. Went through my foreclosure, depression, bankruptcy. Came out. Still obviously broke, but not going to kill myself. I got through the darkest part, but I'm still broke, living in the basement of my foreclosed home. On a futon with a laptop. Is the only thing I had left. Everything else is gone. And so I'm like, well, what am I gonna do now? I guess I'll write another book, right? So I did a technique that a friend taught me where you take your idea for a book and write one chapter on a piece of paper and 3 bullet points and tape these pieces of paper onto a wall, and you just talk it out. Chapter 1, 3 bullet points, and talk like you'd be giving a speech. So I did that with this second book, and then I edited it myself. Big mistake. And got that ready to go. And again, I'm like, it sounds myopic and self-serving. It didn't work at all. But having a radio show years prior, when I was at top of my game, I was able to contact people like Robert Kiyosaki and Laurel Langmeyer. And I asked them, how did you guys do the book thing? And those two both said the same thing. Like, we're best-selling authors, Doug. We're not best-selling writers. They don't
Mhm.
really write their own book. And oh, you have a ghostwritten, yeah. And they didn't tell me much about their process, but I refined our process to the point where we initially take a look at a person's idea, what they want to do, and we'll begin with the end in mind. We'll actually start with, well, who's your audience? Why should they care about you? What can you say that's unique, different, or useful? And then we'll actually work on the cover first and the title, and we'll split test like 20 different covers and titles and do surveys and polls and a focus group to make sure that whatever they want to convey thematically is going to resonate with their target audience. Once we've got that down, we have a professional journalist, ghostwriter, editor, and layout artist. There's at least 4 or 5 different functions going into a book. The journalist asks questions that the reader's going to want to know. When you write your own book, it's from your lens, your perspective, and it's probably pretty close to the truth because it's you, but you might, or you often gloss over things that the reader wants to know. That's why dialogues like this are so much more powerful, because you can ask questions. Oh yeah, I asked a good question. Let me answer that for
Right.
you. So a journalist gets into the deepness and the width of a person's ideas. A good ghostwriter is vital, or a good editor. If you're writing yourself, make sure you get a great developmental editor, because we think linearly, but that's not the way great stories are told. You look at any Breaking Bad episode, Game of Thrones, whatever it is, like start with the Mission Impossible grand opening and then go to the backstory and do a lot of tension, hooks, story arcs, and character development to pull the reader or viewer through. And I often say, Hollywood spends hundreds of millions of dollars to hold your attention for 2 hours. And you, as a writer, are expecting to hold some attention for 6 hours, 8 hours with just your words. You better be a darn good storyteller. You better understand structure and psychology to pull a person through, because the statistics are 54% of books that are purchased never opened. Of those that are opened, half of those never finished. So you got a 1 in 4 chance of getting your book consumed if people get it at all. So our process is a little backwards. Cover first, research, validate it, proper journalism, ghostwriting, developmental editing, layout has got to be done to appeal to both left and right brain people. So we focus on story and words, but also layout. So people who skim or flip through books, we can
Hmm.
have little triggers in there to like pique their interest for a split second to make them pause. So there's a lot of marking that goes on in our structure of the book. Stories got to be compelling. If it's not, we ask permission to sometimes a little poetic license. But um, through all that, the most important thing is not the book. Unfortunately, it's not your story. It's going to be the marketing of it. There have been so many great books I've seen that had no marketing on it. It's like, why isn't this a bestseller? Why isn't this person like tearing it up? And it's because they focus so much on the, oh, if they build it, they will come thing, which is not true at all. It's a great movie. You've got to embed. What we do is we embed our marketing way early on in the process. Those focus groups and surveys we do, that's our target audience. We're going to get their name and email, ask for their opinion on things so that when the book comes out, especially if we get a story from them, when that book comes out, I've got a launch team that's eager and willing and anticipating the book. So we do a lot of things backwards, but the process, I can, send your listeners a mind map of it. It's very unique and it works every single time because we understand this is a book, because we do leadership business type books. This is a book designed to elevate the status and authority of a person in their demographic.
Okay.
People ask me, who are some of your authors? Like, well, you might not know them because they're famous in their industry, in their niche. They're not world famous. There are people that are in a specific, that's all that matters to them. They don't need to be popular in their culture. They need to be popular in their industry. And so that's what we focus on.
All right. What about people that are already established authors, writers that need to be successful authors?
Yeah.
Um, is there somewhere in your wheelhouse
Yeah.
that you can shift and redirect them in order to put them in the same successful space? This is
Yes.
a
As a matter of
personal
fact,
question. You know that, don't you?
yeah, it's okay. I got it. And that's why I do my podcast to learn things myself. Yes, we've got a very unique system there, and I'm sure you're gonna appreciate this, Kevin. But I've been doing this organically my whole life, and we just productized it just this year, actually. It's called Entrepreneur Connect. And what we do is I take a look at the whole ecosystem of the world. I'm like, everyone's like talking about AI and content, and funnels and webinars and memes and images and video. I'm like, that's all fine and good. You realize there's 2 million articles posted every day on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
So someone who's like charging you $1,000, $2,000 to post content or create content, who's going to see it? And they always get the same, I don't know. I'm like, that's right. So we take a contrarian approach, no surprise there, of saying, listen, your content as an author, I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. I care about your audience, what they're saying. So our program is very unique. It's like we're going to take your target audience. Let's say you want to connect with, I don't know, meeting planners or people in the mergers and acquisition space. I'm going to develop a database of, I'll use a real example. We got a guy who's raising some capital for his fund, and he wants to target family offices and endowment fund managers. Like, well, those guys get hit on like a hot blonde at a bar. You're never going to be pitching your deal to some guy who's got, $3 billion in his family. They already got people who are already vetting their deals. So how are you going to get in there? I'm like, well, here's what we're going to do. We are going to take this database and we're going to look at what they're posting in their content. And we're going to take 3 months to like it and share it and endorse it. In month 4, we go on and what we call do micro conversations. We'll go out to the content of our target audience, look at their content and go, wow, that was a great article. I really learned this. How would that apply to that? XYZ. Compliments. Prove that you actually read it, not some bot, human being. I read your article. I learned this. How would what I learn apply to this industry or me? And when someone sees that you've, number one, complimented them on their content, prove that you've read it, and then ask an intelligent question, how likely are they to respond? Pretty close to 100%. The
Right.
next thing they do is they look and say, who is this person? I've seen him now. He's liked my stuff. He's shared my stuff. Now he's commenting on my stuff. Who is this guy? They click on your profile. Now you got them coming to you, right? You do that 2 or 3 times. When you finally get the timing is right? You can't do this in a week or a month. It's stalking, right? If you do it over a 4-month period, by month 4 or 5, I'm going to send them a direct message saying, hey, I'm working on a new book. I'm working on a white paper. I'm working on an article. I'm working on a lead magnet. Whatever you're working on that relates to them, I'd love to get your opinion on this. Can I get 10 minutes of your time? Now, do 100% say yes? No. Well, a lot more are going to say yes to that than a cold email from you click, I connected with you. No, I'm pitching you. Ugh, that's called spam, folks. So a relationship is what we're focused on. I'm going to develop 1,000 people in database with the intention of developing 100 new friends, relationships, not connections, not a database, a relationship. And that comes from focusing on the other person. Hello. It's pretty simple stuff. Anybody who's watched It's a Wonderful Life or read Dale Carnegie's book on how to win friends, influence people will tell you focusing on the other person, but nobody does it, right? So we just do it systematically, authentically over months, the point where now I can have a conversation. And when that first conversation happens, when I get them on that first 10-minute call, half the time they're asking me, well, what do you do? Well, we're a ghostwriting publishing agency, but that's not what this intended call. If you want to have to schedule a second call, we could talk about that later. Right now, I'd love to have your opinion on this thing. And so it's a natural conversation. It's not a pitch fest, so the friction is not there. Defenses are down. You can have a conversation, develop a relationship. And here's the magic part that everybody misses. I've been doing this authentically for a number of years. And last month, for example, 3 referrals came in for me, all from people who are not my clients. Think about that. I had conversations with just about anybody I want to connect with over time, and I don't care whether they're a prospect for me or not. That's not my intention. My intention is to serve them authentically without expecting anything in return. And guess what comes back, right? Like the past month, 3 referrals to them. It's probably close to 100 grand of business have come in from this system in the past month.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second. And the reason why
Please
I'm going to
do.
stop you, no, I want to continue this because, like I said early at the top of the show before we actually started on here, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
we're like-minded. You just outlined the whole new book that I'm working on. I've been teaching how not to sell at 2 facilities and creating great experiences. And you touched
Yes.
on one thing on the chapter that I just wrote last night and how important referrals are. And I want to say this, Corey Poirier, I want to thank you for
Yeah.
introducing me to Doug, because I will personally say that, 90% of every guest that I've had on my podcast has
Mhm.
been referred by someone that's had a pleasant experience. And when I talk about this, I am not, a world-class salesman. I create great experiences, and experiences turn into great relationships. And if your product or services support the experience and that relationship is strong, they don't buy the product or service, they buy you.
Of
And
course.
so I do want to talk about referrals, but I do want to do this. I have to do this because to keep my show alive. And I want to say this to anyone and everyone, let your feet do what your body is naturally meant to do. If you walk around like me, your ankles, your back, your knees scream at you at the end of the day, because I work in a health club in my other job and I'm on my feet. I'm one of the most productive people in this health industry on the East Coast. I learned to go barefoot.
Mhm.
And like I said, if you want to go barefoot and learn more about it, go to www.xeroshoes.com and learn. The link will be in the show notes. And so, with that said, I've gone ahead and did my business for the day, but I want to talk to you on just how important referrals are. And I think it's a lost art because people are always asking for the sell. And I will tell you, anyone that's in this professional space, stop selling, create experiences. But the key thing is when you look at the fact that even the 7 years that I've been working at Lifetime, the success of my business has not been through any lead. It's all been referral basis. And people have never asked me, how do I do what I do? So
Yeah.
tell me, Doug, how important are referrals?
Everyone knows this phrase, the best form of advertising is word of mouth, but nobody has a system for it. And they also, the other thing I learned years ago from an old sales guy that I worked with, I've been able to build several businesses purely on referrals to 7 figures, having never asked for one. And that's a key distinction between most people say, who else do you know? I'm like, oh my God. You understand the psychology of that? When you ask for referrals, it means you're needy. It means you're weak. I don't need any referrals. I want to give you for referrals. Now, I'm not doing this just for status. I'm doing it because authentically, I do like to serve and give. But the moment I ask, now it becomes transactional. I just finished Adam Grant's book, Give and Take.
Hmm.
Phenomenal book, by the way.
Hmm.
Because I thought, I'm friends with Bob Berg, who wrote Endless Referrals. Had
Hmm.
Bob come speak at my event. I was part of his mastermind for a while. Endless Referrals was the seed of all this stuff. Really, it was really quite good. I built a whole. I was the number two guy at Nextel Communications selling to corporations, just because I did exactly what Bob said in that book. But the referrals are probably, as we know, it's the number one form of advertising, but nobody really, they're trying to like systematize it, structure it, and have this equation for it. I don't have an equation for it. I
Hmm.
just do it authentically, organically, as often as I can. And I know, based on history and the law of reciprocity, what do you want to say? 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 always comes back to you. And that's a pretty good ROI if you think about the time I invest versus the millions that people spend on ads trying to interrupt someone's thought. I don't want to interrupt anybody. I want, them to interrupt me, right? So I want to just
Right.
give and get them talk about their content, what's going on with you, how can I help you? And the reason it also works well is because if let's say it's 9 out of 10 people don't give a referral back, that's okay because the one person that does, it's rarely one referral. And it's always the type of referral that you'd like,
Right.
because some referrals that's like, not a good fit, right? Because they're trying too hard. But those
Right.
the comment are always organic, authentic, and like-minded. So it's a beautiful system. Just give until it hurts, and then give some more. Don't count. And if you do it over and over again, it's all you need, really, I believe.
Yeah. Doug, how do people get in touch with you?
A couple different ways. The easiest way is to go to authorbrand.com/go. And for those who are looking to do authors, I can give them a free consult on structuring their book, investigating the theme, whatnot. If you're not an author, don't care about that. Our other website is called Authority Fusion, and that's a free platform. People can go there and get downloads of anything they need to become a speaker, author, or small business person. There's no charge for that. You just go there and log in, and there'll be stuff there. It's not even finished yet, but I'm going to let people can go there. But there's services, tutorials, 15 years of authorship stuff I've learned over the years, all free for people to download and use. So, authorityfusion.com or authoryourbrand.com/go.
You are by far one of the most exciting people that I've met, and I've met many exciting people,
Thanks.
both in this space, and
Mhm.
I am trying very hard, which I'm going to have to go back because some of my thoughts that you repeated, I'm actually going to give you credit for it now because one, when I wrote it, I thought it was an original thought, and then again, I say that there's no such thing as original thought. I said the only thing that's original is the people that act on it. But I am going to go ahead and cite you for some of the things because you've said them already. So it
Yeah.
confirms that wherever I'm going and whatever I've been taught along the way,
Mhm.
that I am doing the right thing and saying the right thing.
Mhm.
You just said it better than I do. Okay, that I have. So that means I'm going to need a ghostwriter, right? All right. So let me ask you this one because
Sure.
this I get asked this all the time when I speak.
Mhm.
And I get this from my young coworkers because I've been in this game for over 40 years. I study human behavior. I went back to, be certified as a mindset coach and realized that I paid $5,000 for something I've been doing all of my life.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I still kick myself in the butt. That was a week out of my life that I can't get back. But it gave me a piece of paper that I already had.
Yeah.
But I get asked this question, and sometimes I'm a person of very blunt. And I realize that in 40 years, you put in your time and so forth. But when people meet you and they hear you talk and they walk away and says, Doug, I want to be just like you. How do you address that? How authentic or how do you answer that question? Help me, help me.
Oh my gosh. Well, number one, I don't haven't had people say they'll say something dissimilar to that, like, wow, you've led a great life or whatnot. That's fine. Being like me, I'm like, well, it's very humbling, number one. I don't know if you want to be like me, but I guess the biggest distinction I would say to that would be like I run across a lot of people who are kind of living in the little bubble of their world. And like I met a guy at my reunion who's like hasn't traveled overseas ever. He's 63 and never been abroad. And he's very excited about his trip. Like, that's great. You're gonna have a good time in Italy. I was here, 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 and check this out. Oh no, it's all planned. It's a tour. It's very structured for him. My wife and I are like, one-way ticket people. We'll go to a place and hang out for months. And oh, how could he do that with the tours? I'm like, no, no, it's okay. It's his first time. He should be in a tour the first time in a foreign country. So it seems to me in terms of personalities, there's people who are, structured and safe and wild and loose, right? So if you're looking at me or talking to me, I'm like, wow, how do you, I had a lot when I was traveling on the world, I did get a lot of people saying, oh, I wish I could do that. I'm like, you can just go. You know, my
Mhm.
I'll tell you the story. My son graduated university many years ago. Um, 3 weeks before graduation, Dad, everyone's interviewing for jobs, and I don't know what to do. I'm not even interested in my major anymore. And normally a father would say, well, son, go apply yourself. I said, good for you. Don't do anything. Dude, you've got time. You're going to work the rest of your life. Take a year off and do nothing. Matter of fact, you should go travel. I don't have the money to travel. You can work for me. I'll hire you. Let's go. I took my son at 21 around the world. We went to Thailand, India, Greece, France, Italy, Cleveland, around the world, right? And we took him to, Parthenon, the pyramids. We did all the hot spots, but we did like 3 tours. The rest of the time we just did it, you know, raw. After a year, we come back. Oh, Dad, this is great. What do you do now? So now you get a job. I'm done with you. Go figure out the
Yeah.
world. He's been depressed ever since because I ruined him. Um, I'm mostly joking. He's fine, but he sees more now than most of his friends who haven't been abroad or haven't been out of their own state. He can see the big picture. And
Right.
when you see other people, other worlds, number one, prejudice goes away, curiosity increases, judgment should definitely drop out of your brain. So in terms of mindset, traveling is a great antidote to whatever ails you, society, personal, family, money, whatever. When you travel abroad and you see people who are struggling for food, or we're in Egypt, and we're at a shop with this guy and his 3 wives and burqas, and nobody can speak English here. It was just a hoot, right? It was a
Hmm.
hoot. Any kind of preconception or any prejudice you might have had is gone in an instant when you're not in a non-English speaking country trying to get around. So it was the greatest part of who I am, I guess, is I believe it's my insane curiosity for others. So that will help you in everything.
Well, you said something, and I'm not going to dwell on it. I've
Yeah.
always, my whole platform is to the power of your words of trying to get people to see and listen, become professional listeners,
Mm.
and be open to different experiences in order to be able to say freely that racism and prejudice can go away. And I think that the biggest thing is listening to other people's stories
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then listening more to their stories and
Yeah.
validating their stories and
Yeah.
their experiences are true.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I,
and
I'm a big believer of that, man. I mean, it's when I was at Atlanta with my wife just a few months ago, went to this restaurant with some friends and having a great time. And we walked out and she said, "You realize you're the only white guy there?" I said, "I didn't notice." And I'm like, yeah, I guess there is a such thing as being colorblind, and hopefully I'm like that all the time. I don't know if I am, but at that moment I certainly was because I didn't think about it. So yeah,
Well, that's
it's
the reason why we need to surround ourselves and be exposed to other people
yeah,
and just be around other people without
right.
putting a label. Or I think we're branding the wrong thing. And I think the one emotion we should brand is love.
Yes, absolutely.
I
And
think that's
it's
that.
so funny. I often think about this, like why what and all prejudice and racism is learned, right? We're not born with that. Little babies
I
are
totally
never that way,
agree.
right? So it's all learned, number one. But I keep thinking about I'm a kind of a nerd, right? So I'm like, you know what? We sure like I know what the number is. I'm making this part up, but I think we sure like either 13 or 30% of the same DNA as a turnip, right? But when you look at human beings, we share 99.99999% of DNA, right? So why is there any attention, any focus, any conversation on that 0.001% difference? When there's so much we have in common, it makes no logical sense at all to me why you would focus on that one itty bitty bitty difference, which again, 99% of the time means nothing anyway. Why would you even think about that when there's so much we have in common?
You
It
know,
boggles my
that
mind.
That's and like I said, I study human behavior, and that
Mm,
1% is the answer. Is because that 1% that controls all the power of this world has not solved value in
yeah.
humanity, and they choose profit over humanity.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
and
reason
and
why.
and they fuel that profit through discourse and all the bad things, right?
You're
You
exactly
know,
right.
we don't want to talk political, I'm sure, but oh my gosh, I just laugh at these people thinking, you really think you could change someone's mind with that meme? I don't care what side you're on, but anytime you're trying to influence people through more hate and more division, you're part of the problem, man.
Yep.
100%. I have nothing for you.
I and I think going religion and politics is
Mm,
going down a rabbit hole that not many
yeah.
of us want to travel or repeat if we've been there before. But I do say, I said, this is the way. And Coretta Scott King told this to another media person, Brian. I
Mhm.
forget his last name that comes in. She said, just tell them the truth and let them decide. And I think if we made it illegal for politicians to lie, um, and just automatically disqualifications and let us choose based on the truth and what they can do,
Yeah.
we'll go from there. But people don't realize that the power that we have is the greatness within ourselves. No matter who we put in a position, is what you do every single day and how you interact and relate to other people. That's what
Yeah.
the real power is. And if you can get your local representatives in order to think like and do those things,
Yeah.
whatever, those people sitting in a big house, they have no power. It's the people that run Silicon Valley and everything else. That'd be the
Yeah.
truth. But I'm going to
Yeah.
segue over there because you did a good job today because I'm going over my notes and I had share, and comment in there because, I had written that in there. And again, I thought I had an original thought because that's what I teach. I'll be teaching podcasting at Cheney University in a couple of days here. I'm
Right.
actually going to use your comments as a training tool, this video. But this is one thing, and I've always asked myself, and I don't live my life with any regrets, but there is one thing in my life personally that if I had to do it all over again, I would do it over and do it in a different way because I know I had wronged a person when I was 18 years of age, and I'll say this to
Yeah.
Robin Hill, because I was put in position by my parents that I had to make a choice, and I chose
Um,
driving our brand new car um, to the prom and taking my ex-girlfriend, was my present girlfriend, that she had turned me down and going to my senior prom. And Robin was a family friend.
mhm.
And I told her the day of the prom, because my grandparents gave me an option. I couldn't drive the car because my ex had given a sad story, the reason why they went out and bought her a dress and everything else. I wanted to drive the car and not think about the person I had hurt. So I always said, if I ever get a public platform, no matter how it comes back to me, I would say publicly, I was a jerk, and I'm sorry to Robin Hill. But I'm going to ask you that, and to
Okay.
thank you for allowing me to take your interview and be able to go ahead and bare my soul. If you had a chance to do one thing over, to make one wrong a right, or one regret, what would it be?
It would be to better handle my divorce
Okay, I'm not
because
going to go into.
I was a coward when I did it. I didn't inform everybody at the same time, same way, and it was cowardly and it was inappropriate. And had I had the stones to do a better job, I would have, but I was too weak at that time to do a good job. So I uh I wish I would have done a better job with that.
And I'm glad you share that here on that platform, on this platform, because I know there are people that um, will find grace in what you just said and forgive you. At least that's what I'm hoping. I know I've always said this. If now I'm going to religion. If
It's
God can
okay.
forgive a person that stuck a spear between his ribs, why are we greater than God?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Very well said.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I want to have some fun with you real quick.
Go for it.
All
I'm
right.
all in. Yeah.
I talk about distractions. Young people,
Mhm.
everyone walks around with this cell phone here. No one ever looks up in the sky.
Mhm.
You'll probably see my texts. I walk my dog. I look up. I count the stars. I'm I'm a professional dreamer. I will tell you that.
Love it.
Distractions. All right, feed them, or do you ignore them?
Well, I used to have some games on my phone and I caught myself being a little addicted to that when I was bored, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, times to add up. So I deleted it. I put them back on a few months later. I'm like, wow, that was really strange. They really got a hook in you. I deleted them again. I haven't put them on since. That's been well over 6, 8 months now. Haven't had it on my phone. I'm more productive with that. So if it's a distraction that doesn't fuel your purpose, please delete it and actively push it and maybe get an accountability partner to do that. If it's a distraction that you actually fuels your passion or your purpose, then I think it's okay. I mean, I had an airplane for 3 years, and after the big dip, I didn't anymore. And so we're gearing up to get another one here next year or so. So instead of looking at playing games, I might go look at airplanes for a few minutes because that fuels my purpose. So if
Honda
it's a
has a
positive
beautiful,
distraction versus negative one, yeah.
yeah, Honda has a beautiful plane, a jet that's coming out that's affordable. Well, if you can say that's affordable. Um, I
Affordable
just
for
wrote
me
that
has
on.
propeller on it. Okay, that's
Okay.
affordable ones, propellers.
Well, I have that on I just wrote that last week after seeing it. I've never wanted my own private plane. I'm
Yeah,
going next step. Okay. That's going to the next step because I want to do more public
yeah.
speaking.
Hmm.
Do you believe in tracking or journaling? Like I said, I get up every morning and write the first thought in there.
Yeah.
And why is it important?
So important. I'm not a good coach for this. I've done it several times in my life, and I just found one this last year that I had journaled for, a few months and I paused. It is a great thing, as you know, from being studying a study of human psychology. It does so many things all at once, right? It helps data dump your random crazy thoughts onto a linear manner on paper. Always do it by hand, never do it by computer. Again, there's a lot of science behind the tactile idea of writing versus typing. Journaling, it gets your thoughts organized. It puts things into some kind of reality state versus the subconscious or conscious
Mhm.
dream state. It's actually on paper. So it might not really be a Maserati at that point, but you release it written down. So you're this much closer than just having it be a random thought. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to doing it. I would definitely recommend anybody who's been told to journal to please do it. And don't try to go hog wild with it. Hour they have just do something every day. Consistency is the biggest discipline you can learn in anything, whether it's social media or podcasting or writing or
Right.
business. Consistency is key. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yep.
Um, Two words.
Yes.
All right. Ego or confidence. Are they different or are they one and the same?
Ego or confidence?
Yep. Your ego or your confidence. I hear it all the time. I've been an exceptional athlete all of my life. I've
Mhm.
been in the top 20% of the fastest, most athletic people in the whole part of the country at the time I was in the
Yeah.
sales business. I've always been, if I had not been number one, right now in the company that I serve now, out of 4,000 people, I am ranked number three in two areas and number five in another out of 4,000 people. So that puts me in that 1%
Yep.
category.
Mhm.
Um, I am extremely confident in what I do. It's not my ego. And I basically am myself. When I say ego is one of those things you haven't proven, confidence is one of those things you follow.
That's great. It's funny. I've often we have a wide variety of friends in our world, right? So
Right.
I say something similar. I always say the difference between arrogance and confidence is who is doing the telling. If I'm arrogant, I'm going to tell you how great I am. If I'm confident, someone else is telling you how great I am. So
Exactly
that's
right.
my distinction. Ego technically is not a negative word. It's just that people associate with that because I think it's self-serving, and it is. But it's if you dissect it, it's not. We all have it. So
Yeah.
how we use it, I guess, is the part where people say, yeah, if you're egocentric, arrogant SOB, then yeah, it's not attractive. And it's also why when I look at marketing, I study marketing all the time. Like, why don't you post a picture of you in front of a jet right now? Like, it's not. It's to appeal to the people who don't have one. That's your bottom feeding, as opposed
Yeah.
to people that have one who never post a picture of them in front of their jet because there's a lawsuit waiting to happen. So yeah, ego, a negative perspective of ego is always gonna limit you, or at least reduce your genuineness, I think. Confidence is a great thing. There's no downside to being confident unless it's dangerous, I guess.
Okay.
Going with an dagger in a barrel or something.
As an athlete,
Yeah.
I've always been taught that the morning that you wake up and you feel no pain, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, do you avoid pain, the hard things in life, or do you always take the easy road?
See, that's an interesting point. What some people would think is hard, I find enjoyable. So remember, like when people who haven't worked out in a while start up, right? The very first week, oh, I'm in such pain. But by week 2 or 3, they look forward to the endorphin hit.
Right,
So you've been past that your whole life, of course. But I would say that I don't, I guess I avoid pain. Because I don't, but what I'm doing in building my company and doing things, I always enjoy it. But to some people, that would be painful. Public speaking is a great example, right? We all know
right,
they're both public speakers, and
right,
most people would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy in that thing. So
right.
we don't think it as painful. Other people do.
Yeah,
So I don't lean into pain. No, I'm gonna say no, I don't. I guess.
that's a good answer. Now, my
Yeah.
last question,
Honest. Yeah.
and it's not necessary question. It's more of you have three children, two girls
Yeah.
and a son,
Yeah.
and you have someone that has your heart. I
Yeah.
always say show up every single day and be the example to the world that your children want to see. Tell tell your children what type of example you want to be. If you were to put your words in a bottle and it was to wash up the shore long after you're gone, and your
Yeah.
kids are there with your grandkids, whatever, what would be the message that you leave for your kids?
There's several messages. The first one is, in order to have a successful relationship with anybody, you have to be able to adapt to the inevitable changes that you cannot predict because all things change and the ones that you can't predict are the most jarring ones. So your ability to adapt is a very important skill to have. Um, and then the second one would just be what we talked about, which is replace judgment with curiosity every chance you get, especially when it's someone you vehemently disagree with, because that's where the real growth happens. It's okay to have values, but when you challenge your own beliefs, that's when you learn things. I mean, this is a little political, but when people say this is the way it should be, like, okay, well, what if we're all trying for the same thing or just trying different paths to get there, right? Why don't you talk about the goal, not how we get there? It's being insanely curious does solve a lot of things, both socially and financially.
You are an amazing, amazing human being, a good human
Thanks.
being.
Thanks,
One of
Kevin.
the most powerful speakers that I've had on here. Not to take anything away from Corey, because Corey just showed up in Times
Great.
Square on a big billboard, larger
Yeah.
than life. He is such a good person, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank him again for referring you to
Mm-hmm.
here to our show. I do want to ask you. It's more of not a question, more it's a statement. My grandfather always said, "When you get to a place in life, it is your duty to help someone." He said, "Reach one, teach one," which is the reason why I use that in my
Right.
background. But I learned this lesson for the hard way is that when you hear me talk about that, my friends in my circle, which you're in that circle, and I'm going to add you to the list of the 100 people that have shared their secrets to success on this podcast. So I want to thank you for coming to the show, and I'll do this 100 times over. Is that my friends, they don't drive by an accident, they stop to help. And the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because years ago, before they had the Good Samaritan Act, they had
Mm-hmm.
showed up on the 6 o'clock news in Dayton, Ohio, which I hail from, and someone had been sued after helping someone. And my
Mm-hmm.
grandparents had told me to stop helping people. That's just the way that I was taught. And
Yeah.
the one day that I drove by an accident, I was going to Central State University. I was 30 minutes away going to class in the afternoon. There was a mail truck that was overturned on the highway. I saw the body laying outside of the truck um, on the expressway. As much as I wanted to stop, I had
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother's thought worrying about being sued. Later on,
Mm-hmm.
I learned that was my grandmother's brother.
No way.
Yes, the true story.
Get me
So,
goosebumps, man. Jeez.
So with that said, I've adopted a lot of things from when I've grown up. So my friends and my circle of friends, when we talk about marketing and media, everyone's talking about how to get likes and followers and so forth. And I've learned the
Mm-hmm.
hard way, like, share, and comment. That's how you get people to follow you. You have to give before you ask.
Always.
And you have to give multiple times before you ask, and before you're not, people are curious why you're giving without being asked.
Yeah.
Um, if you had one ask, and the reason why I'm saying this the way that I'm saying it, because I've had six people that have answered this question.
Hmm.
And out of the 10,000 people that follow this show, I've had six total strangers answer this ask. There are many people that go through their whole entire life and never have one dream come true. Six people that have been on my guest, both big and small, has had
Hmm.
some stranger help them with their dream. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sit back and let you breathe for a little bit, but I'm going to ask if you had one ask, one thing that you can ask, and someone outside, and I know you don't need much, that it could come true and someone else can help you, what would your ask be?
Gosh, that is so hard. Thank you for a great question. I have this. You have a minute. I got to tell you a quick story to go with it because I wasn't
Go
asking.
ahead.
And one of my clients who is extremely successful, he's like on the board of directors at Samsung, and we did his book for him, and he's bought 20 companies, and like he just sold us a nine-figure company this past month. He asked to be part of our company and infuse a bunch of capital and his name into our company recently without asking, right? I mean, it's like, whoa, really? Because yeah, I go, yeah, of course. So I joined. So with that big infusion of human and financial capital, I'm like, I don't really need anything right now. My initial reaction would be, um, share this podcast. I would love for people to take our conversation really, and don't just watch and consume it, but go ahead and share it to the world, to your community. Because if you have 10,000 people and out of those 10,000 people, let's say only 1,000 share it, but they've got communities 200, well, there's 200,000 more eyeballs and earballs and hearts who are going to take this message and make a change. We only do books. We publish ghostwrite books for people who are more or less humble, but have a desire to serve. I've had a few celebrities and egocentric people come to me and they tell me what they want to do. I'm like, it's not for us. So I'm big on the doing something that has some ripple effect. You mentioned before at
Right.
the Library of Congress and book. So share this podcast to be my first and only ask I can think of offhand. That's the one that'd be most important, is to make the world a better place by what you said earlier, which is like, love kind of cures everything. So don't be afraid of it. Lean into it. Yeah.
I'm going to give it a little bit of applause and let our
Yeah.
listeners just kind of inhale and exhale, take this in, because the message is powerful. What you said is just powerful. And then I'm going to say personally, you're the second person that has ever asked, return it asked back to, no, I'm going to say three people because George Lee did it too. So
Yeah.
I'm an emotional person, so you almost made me cry. So stop it. All right. Um, I am looking forward to us meeting in person. One
You
more
got it.
time. How do people get in touch with you?
Best way is to go to authorbrand.com/go, and we can actually talk about your idea for a book because everyone's got at least one or two ideas for booking them. And I can give you some pointers on that. And it's not a sales call, of course. It's a call discussing your ideas and how we can make the world a better place. That'll be the number one way. It's authorbrand.com/go.
Doug,
Yeah.
thank you. We could talk for another 2 hours. I want you to come back. I will tell you there is an open seat for you to come back. This was a what I would call a mastermind
Mhm.
class. Personally, it was one of those experiences that I am never going to forget. Sometimes you meet people and you wish you'd never met them. You're one of these people I hope I never forget.
Thank you.
So.
Same here, Kevin. I appreciate it so much. You
All
bet.
right, and I know I'm competing against a bunch of world-class people, especially you being in this industry, and me always dreaming to be in this industry. And thanks to COVID, it allowed me to have this space. Thanks to my
Hmm.
youngest son Theo, that
Yeah.
because of his work schedule, he's not part of the show anymore. But he was
Hmm.
the person that pushed me into the pool and told me to learn to swim. And
Hmm.
so he told me I had two choices: I can either drown or swim, and I decided to swim, and that's how I started my podcast. So,
I
to my
like him.
listeners, I want to say this, and to the young man that weeks ago that made an introduction and called me because I didn't want to be called a motivational speaker. I didn't want to be called an influencer because of what I did.
Yeah.
But I always talk about the power of your words and your mindset. And he called me the mindset messenger. And I'm going, just want to tell you, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that. So, with that said, I want you to think about this. To grow, you must make mistakes. And this is what I've learned from you today. To be confident, you must address your anxieties. To forgive yourself, you must hold yourself accountable. To learn, you must unlearn some stuff. Like you said, travel is a key in getting to know people,
Mhm.
even affects racism and cultural difference and so forth.
Yeah.
But to exist in a space like Doug Crowe has, you must show up as more today than you did yesterday. Understand the power of your words. A note from me to you, the mindset messenger. So if you like what you've heard and sitting from whatever seat that you're sitting in right now, I'm going to ask you to like, share, and comment, as Doug so
Mhm.
eloquently spoke before. But I will tell you, if you decide to follow, this is my mindset. I'm okay with that following as long as you're one of those people that have a high call to action. If you're not about service, not about helping someone else, I just want to say I appreciate you. But
Mhm.
if you hit subscribe, I want to make sure you're one of those persons trying to make a difference in someone's life, not yours, someone else's life.
Mhm.
Because in order to have value in this life, Mike Tyson said it better when he said, money's not good unless you help someone with it. Being in existence in this world is not good unless you're willing to serve. And that's what we're all here to do. So with that said, if you like what you've heard, go to rmkproductions .org. If you want to be a guest on this show or know someone that would be a great fit for this show, you can go to info@rmkproduction.org, fill out the information, and we would love to have you. I would love to talk to you. Doug, my hashtag is find 1,000 ways to be kind to someone. I
Mhm.
want to thank you for your kindness. I want to thank you for your service to the world. You are a gift. You're a lot of fun to be around. Like I said, I if you ever speak on the East Coast or any place, I will buy a ticket to come and see you speak. I would love to
Excellent.
have you back, and hopefully you've enjoyed. If you want to give
Oh, yeah.
a closing statement to our listeners or something they want to take away, now that you're part of the and sharing your secrets to success, if you want to share your secrets or give a closing statement, I'm going to let you. The mic is yours.
Wow. Well, you had me at a thousand ways of kind. How was the hashtag again? I'm sorry. Thousand kindness was
Find
it?
1,000 ways to be kind to someone. My son said it was too long, but I said, you know something? Um, that I'm fine with that. You have to
Excellent.
adjust to me, not me adjusting to you. I don't lower my standards. I raise them.
There you go. Well, he's spot on. It's definitely kindness and love and sharing all sound like foo-foo woo-woo words. But gosh darn it, there's some science to this and it actually works. It's very important to, like I said, I agree with you, Kevin. Yeah, just share this message. There's no downside to it. You're not going to be penalized. You're not going to lose anything by being kinder, by being nicer, by giving before you ask or even expect anything in return. There's no downside to doing it. If you do consistently, you'll always be rewarded. So I appreciate your time today, of course.
All right, with that said, I've said this 1,000 times. My grandfather always said, when you get to a place that you can help someone else out, it is your duty to do so.
Mhm.
He said, reach one, teach one. And with that
Yeah.
said, we'll fade to black and we're out. Thank you, Doug Crowe.